Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Okay, guys, just quickly going back to the PDF. In conclusion, I stated that there seems to be, from the research, a plan that is the phase 3 of their plan in anticipation of the arrival of Ad-Dajjal, lanatullahi alayh. And the four-step plan that they have in mind, one of which is a naturally occurring one, which they've actually factored into this, anticipating the natural disasters that would occur whilst this binary system exits. But for them, it's a case of never putting a disaster to waste. So they're kind of been scheming around this system as it comes in. And the four-step, I guess, plan that they have in place, as I understand it, is first of all the economic collapse. Then there's instigating World War III. As far as I understand it, the thesis and the antithesis are both part of the same structure, so both opposing sides. The victims are going to be the citizens, humanity, as it were. And then from the ashes of that, they intend to bring about the grand arrival, as it were, of Dajjal, lanatullahi alayh. And then moving on from World War III, I understand that they're looking to stage an extraterrestrial contact, a false one. Now, there's a lot of the military. I mean, I've referenced a video, in fact, part one of the false extraterrestrial contact. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's on the channel. I certainly recommend it. It makes light of my work, at least trying to explain how they have been planning this PSYOP for almost 50 or 60 years, using the mainstream media, using the film industry, using popular culture, using academia, and now you can see the almost momentum speeding up towards it. In fact, in one of my videos I mentioned that very soon they're going to mention that they've probably found some sort of extraterrestrial life, and when I mention extraterrestrial life I mean um, uh, um, something like microbial or something like that on the surface of one of the celestial bodies within our solar system. So again, it just makes it that much more easier to digest when in fact that contact is done, and for them to basically open up our psyche to that possibility. The technologies that exist, for anyone who studied it properly and deciphered through the nonsense and the conspiracies to actually go down this uh, primrose's path and find that you actually end up at the door of the military industrial complex, and how they've been basically investing in technology and science, and then creating this psyop around the extraterrestrial narrative using the same technology, using anti-propulsion systems, and then they're actually in black ops whilst they're invading our countries, our Muslim countries, are basically using these sort of black ops to test these technologies that they have in place. Remember, Dajjal Lanatullah alayhi is going to be able to move from location to location, within a matter of seconds. He's going to move like the wind. This is what the Prophet ﷺ told us, and his conveyance is going to be a very speedy one. And you can see how these anti-gravitational propulsion systems work. And they certainly haven't made us aware of this technology simply because they're going to use that, right? And there's going to be a stark difference between the sort of technology that Dajjal Lanatullah is available to him in order to lull the masses into believing that everything related to him is almost miraculous, as it were. That technology can't be revealed to us because it will be used by him, and in order to basically leave us awestruck with his lanatullah, his capabilities, Okay, so that sort of technology has always been kept behind the smokescreen and used very secretly so that they can test it. And I understand that that's the sort of technology that's going to be used very soon in order to stage this extraterrestrial contact. Now, I want to show you some examples, and these examples are the ones that actually don't have CGI in them. Again, I mean, I've got some level of understanding of what CGI is and whether something is CGI or not to a reasonable extent. And I believe what we see in here, none of which it is. Okay. Now we'll just talk about it. Well, we'll talk through it as we move along. Now this was in Libya, as I understand it, and you'll see this. It's almost very smoothly moving through the skies. Look, it's hovering at the moment. Okay. Now the only military aircraft we know that does that at the moment was the British Harrier jet. Now, did you see it disappear as well? Now, as soon as it did that and dropped whatever it was, it caused this fire, and it was caught by someone on the ground in Libya. But again, did you see how it shot up? Now, that's the gravitational propulsion systems that they have, the technology that they have, and how they're using it basically on this particular craft. Now, as far as the arsenal is concerned and the weaponry is concerned, I mean, they have all sorts. They have directed energy weapons to like all sorts of other arsenal within their inventories and technologies. Again, they're not what the narrative was sold about conventional. And understand this word UFO as well. We tie it up a lot with conspiracy, but basically, if you break it down, it means unidentified flying object. So conventionally, we don't see it in our skies. Conventionally, it's not a helicopter. Conventionally, it's not a jet. Conventionally, it's not a plane. So it's unidentified, at least in conventional terms. And that's what it basically means. I mean, it's been hijacked, naturally, um, uh, uh, by the kind of, and almost associated by virtue of like neuro-linguistic psychology, where you basically anchor UFO with the conspiracy theorists and that sort of world. But that's part of the psyop that they've got in place, and that's in that um, where was it? That's in part one of the false extraterrestrial contact that I've uploaded, and that explains it really well. Anyway, this is in Qatar, right? Subhanallah, again, someone on the ground has basically taken footage. This particular technology I've seen in several places, especially in the States. It's literally got, if you were directly underneath it and you're looking up, then it's triangular, and it's got a big circle in the center, and then at each corner of the triangle there's 3 circles. There's 4 in total, 1 in the center, and it has this anti-gravitational system. It's been caught by a lot of people on the ground. So I mean, this is certainly a piece of military tech that exists, and they're testing it in Black Ops. So they go into our countries and actually test their military technology, where they don't run the risk of being caught out by, I guess, the mainstream. So subhanAllah, these technologies do exist, and again we need to draw our attention as to what they're doing and why these black ops exist and how they're using it, right? I'm a little dubious about this particular one, in the sense that you see this whole flying saucer shape kind of technology. It started all the way back in Project Paperclip, I understand. And it was a technology that the military arm of Adolf Hitler were basically toying with, right? This anti-gravitational system, and then it turns out during that stage, I mean, if you even do your research on World War II, you'll come to understand that Adolf Hitler and the opposing side, which was Europe, UK, and America, were financed by the Rothschilds, and then used to basically purchase out the London stock market as well at the same time. Interesting enough, they actually ran the postal system at the time as well. So any news of any news of any updates came to them first, and they kind of used that in order to basically buy, well, manipulate the markets in London. Anyway, it's very interesting how basically they move through the shadows, and this technology apparently was something that Adolf Hitler had basically had his military arm working on, and since then America has kind of exported it there. So it's still going on. It never stopped. The project never came to an end, and it's continued since. And these systems are being used, as far as I understand it. You know, they'll be used when the Jalal comes, and just before his arrival, just so that they can set the stage with the Ummah about the narrative of extraterrestrial life existing, and then there will be this claim that these beings have visited Earth, since it's obviously the conditions are optimum here, and they created insan, through hybridizing the gene of the Homo erectus with their gene, and they'll basically show that these beings basically are benevolent, and they visited ancient Egypt and Babylonia and all these other locations. It was them all along, coercing mankind through their evolution, as it were. When I say evolution, I mean in terms of intellect and um, uh, progress. Until we were in a position to basically absorb the true, which is the false quote narrative that they'll bring to us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but the evidence certainly suggests very strongly that this is what they're intending to do. And all of this is going to be done and rolled out on the Ummah at a very, very fragile time. Right? World War would have ensued. World War III, again, staged and planned. So you want to maybe take a look at what Albert Pike had to say to Mazzini in his letter to him about how they intend to stage 3 world wars: World War I, World War II, and World War III. And this was in the mid-1800s. And he was the military head in the United States, and a grandmaster in masonry. And they talked about how in World War III they're going to use the Muslim and the Christian world to collide with one another. But inshallah ta'ala, that's not going to happen. I mean, that was in Yemen, right? Subhanallah, did you see that? Now that's the sort of technology that's available to them, of directed energy weapons. We discussed that a while ago. So all this nonsense on the ground about they talk about nuclear warheads and missiles. That's all. Think of it as analog. So you got the digital and analog. That's all analog technology, right? Just like those brick mobile phones that we used to have. Yeah, but they have to continue that narrative. They have 0 point energy right now, so that's creating energy from nothing. Right? They have that technology, but it does not lend itself to their agenda, so they don't want to make it available to us, because most of the issues that we have, which they count on in order to basically have the control and power that they have over the world and its people, is over energy source, right? And the energy, 0 point energy already exists, the technology already exists, but it's being kept from the people. In the same way, this technology exists where they can direct energy weapons in certain locations and cause the sort of destruction they want to. So this whole narrative about, nuclear warheads, although they're very destructive, but that technology can be disarmed. They can, look at that, subhanallah. And then the anti-gravitational propulsion systems at the same time, you know. You saw recently, again, I want to draw your attention that the rocket for NASA that was going up, and they caught a UFO near it before it exploded. That again wasn't a UFO; it was military tech, right? But they knew that the world is going to be what it was, a psyop, right? There was two things they were doing over there. They wanted, because don't forget Facebook, and that's huge. Okay, it's billions of people, if not, yeah, billions of people who basically got their profile on Facebook, and they were launching this new technology. So most of the world was watching, and usually you find when the world is watching, this is when they do it. Okay, even at the UK Olympics during this fireworks show, they staged an a UFO flyby, and this is when all the world's watching and all the live cameras are there conveniently enough, but they're psyops, right? They want you to buy into this narrative that UFOs do exist and extraterrestrial life perhaps exists, right? So you kind of open up to this whole idea, and they did the same with the rocket that was launching for Facebook, right? With this technology allowing third world citizens to have internet access on board. You know, it was some sort of a satellite they were going to launch in our orbit. And then we see this UFO craft flying, just hovering just above the rocket, and then it blows up. Okay, so again, it's like they understand that people are going to be watching and they're going to be saying, "Oh, it was a UFO that did it." And when people like us on the ground say UFO, they mean extraterrestrial life. When in fact it was military technology, but they want you to buy into that narrative. So this is exactly what they show, and they're using and exploiting the fact that millions and millions of people are watching it at the same time, so they don't waste that as a psyop, right? Now, subhanallah, this is in Dubai. On it, they've got cloaking devices, so they can cloak themselves. And we talked about that technology, how you can make things disappear, and how they're probably most likely using that above Earth's orbit as well when it comes to trying to cloak certain celestial objects from our view at the moment, whilst they're at a distance. Hypothesizing that as they get closer, they won't be able to cloak it, and most likely any sort of orbital technology that they have through magnetic means will be basically torn out of the atmosphere anyway, because of the attraction from these celestial bodies. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So it'll become self-evident at that time. And you'll be able to see what they've been scheming and trying to hide, but they're going to use that. I'm sure they're going to exploit it to sell this whole extraterrestrial narrative, and that's when this holographic technology will come into the fore, and how it will be used. And then this military technology that you're looking at right now. So every now and then you're going to see hardware being used, and then in other instances there's going to be holographic technology, right? And then you've got obviously dark forces as well, and we've discussed how they possibly can maybe trying to tear the fabric of dimensions between us and the other island of Jinn, right? So that basically they can enter our dimension, right? And we understand that they will be with Dajjal spreading fitna throughout the world, and coming in the form of parents and who've deceased, to claim that Dajjal is, Nauzubillah min zalik, from believing nonsense, the God, and that he is the creator. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from buying any of this nonsense. But can you see how all of this subhanallah is very ajib, very ajib. As I was going through this journey and coming across, I knew it wasn't serendipity. It seemed very clear, and you'll get to see how clear things are as they unfold. But you only got to look at the PDF, right, and follow the breadcrumbs in that. Maybe perhaps you go on your own journey. The PDF I'm referring to is Science. I'll again put a link to it in this description box as well. But I certainly do feel, I mean, when I initially basically mentioned this, I knew that it would be very difficult. But for some of you, for those of you who've been following the science document and have gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, and then been basically updating yourself with the evidence put forward in on the channel itself, since now you might not be as averse to the conclusion laid out in the science PDF. They're all very, very real possibilities. I mean, what I put forward is plausible, and again, this is what my gut instinct is telling me that they've got on the cards, and it's very worrying. Out of World War III, the economic collapse, and the extraterrestrial contact, the staged one. The one that concerns me the most is the extraterrestrial contact, the staged one, simply because, just like evolution, it will have a huge impact on the ummah. And the biggest concern for us and our ulama should lie with the fact that possibly, if they do stage an extraterrestrial contact, then what's at stake is the iman of a huge swath of the Muslim demographic, who are more liberal in their position towards the they run the risk of losing their iman to this big psyop, which is part of the whole unveiling of Dajjal lanatullah. So we need to become muhtat. We need to become a bit more like aware, a bit more like what we need to prepare, and maybe just give the ummah, the Muslim ummah, the heads up that this possibly might be on the cards, and if it is, then not to be lulled into this. It's false. It's a lie. It's from Shaitan lanatullahi alayh, and it's basically going to be the precursor to setting the stage of Dajjal lanatullah's arrival. It's very real. So ulama really need to look into this. It's more important. I can't even stress the importance of this. It's our iman that's at stake here, right? And then when Dajjal will come, we'll already be in a situation where our spiritually will be. I mean, there's going to be an onslaught to all our senses, whether that's deprivation of food, whether that's rates in crime, whether that's the war and everything else that would ensue. There's so much that will happen, and we're going to be shaken to the core, as I understand it, and how I've laid it down in the PDF science. So please, I mean, this is something that we want to focus on and take a look at. Again, I can't stress that the fact that there isn't little time. I'm, seriously not trying to be a sensationalist. Anyway, Jazakallahu khairan wa ahsanu jaza for your time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I'll leave a link to part 1 of the staged extraterrestrial contact. It's an excellent presentation. It very clearly outlines how they intend to basically stage it and unfold it on the Ummah, and how they have been doing it incrementally, and now it's going to come to the zenith of that particular. They're going to come to the zenith of that plan, and we're going to see the actual technology being used on the Ummah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.